One of the things we struggle with at colleges and universities is the Title IX.
Today's topic is Title IX.
Whether or not their engagement around that violates Title IX, I simply can't say.
This is Jay Fresno. He grew up in Connecticut being ridiculed and harassed for being gay. So from 4th through 7th grade, he would spend frequent stints in the principal's office crying because of how cool his classmates were.
The bullying was never physical. I was never really physically harmed, but the taunting and the threat, it does something to you where you just at first are really broken. It didn't feel good being socially isolated and ridiculed.
Stories like Jay's are far from common, but there is legislation in place to protect people like him. There are nearly 2 million LGBT kids in U.S. school systems. And under Title IX, schools must take immediate and effective action in order to eliminate hostile environments and protect their students.
So Title IX is a federal statute that was passed almost 50 years ago. At the time, Congress was primarily worried about sex discrimination in higher education as it occurred through limits on the number of women that certain colleges and graduate programs would accept. And so Congress added this provision that says,
"No person in the United States shall on the basis of sex be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance." That's it. Very simple, very straightforward. It is a commonly held belief that Title IX only applies to athletics, but that is not the case. Title IX applies to all activities at educational institutions receiving federal funding.
The statute doesn't say anything specifically about who gets protected. Sex discrimination is inherently a component of sexual orientation discrimination.
Though Title IX is not a perfect piece of legislation, it is effective. Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer students face more adversity than our straight cisgender counterparts. We're far more likely to fall into substance abuse or homelessness, and we're more likely to be depressed, anxious, or suicidal. In addition to this, we face increased adversity in schools, suffering from increased harassment and bullying, according to a 2013 survey. Though this has definitely changed for the better over time, there's still a lot of work to do. As a queer person myself with amazing queer friends, I'm personally invested in protecting members of my community from bullying, harassment, and the like. I'm very fortunate to have appropriate Title IX enforcement in my county. Remember Jay? If he lived in my county, the bullying he experienced would be easy to report, the investigation would be quick and confidential, and most importantly, the guilty parties would have been subject to counseling, suspension, or expulsion. But that's not the case everywhere.
We have all those courses on Title IX for students in your area, but does that exist in Ohio? And if educators aren't receiving that training universally, there's something wrong. And I will tell you, I know for a fact it doesn't happen across the country in every single school district.
We probably have some of the best Title IXs in the world. Here in Maryland, it's like the best of the best. Yet with all those amazing protections, it doesn't really funnel through to the lived experience.
In reality, Title IX investigations are complicated and hard to enforce appropriately.
Literally in Title IX is the word subjectivity. It's really hard to assess the situation in order to handle it appropriately.
Title IX investigations are not criminal investigations, and so they don't involve lawyers or anything of the sort. But if found guilty by the school, consequences like expulsion or suspension have dire impacts on a student's future. This can lead to lawsuits since convictions are made without due process from the side of the accused. So, schools are more likely to diminish the severity of consequences overall, regardless of the situation, in order to avoid liability. In addition, Title IX investigations are known to be painful, dragged out, and rehashed, making the victim relive the trauma over and over again on the path to justice. But that's not the way Title IX is supposed to be enforced.
Title IX doesn't work unless it's enforced appropriately. But regardless of implementation, Title IX within itself has flaws.
So Title IX has provisions that say schools can have separate athletic teams for boys and girls. We need some kind of different analysis when it comes to transgender inclusion.
So just because Title IX applies to transgender students, it doesn't necessarily mean that they legally need to be accommodated with bathrooms and locker rooms that align with their gender identity.
One way to clarify it would be for litigation to occur that could allow the court to consider the additional layer of analysis that would be necessary to really confirm that this non-discrimination principle also means letting people participate according to their gender identity. Congress could make a very clear amendment to Title IX or pass another law that addresses this issue.
So until we see these interpretations codified in law, we're going to keep having this back and forth.
If it could be more permanent, that would be probably better.
And then we're not leaving it up to an interpretation of something that doesn't say anything about the issue.
Title IX, when implemented correctly, is effective. But ultimately, it's just a band-aid fix. In order to really eradicate LGBT discrimination, we need to change the culture in our schools, communities, and friend groups.
I don't think it changes somebody's heart who doesn't have it in them already. I don't think the policies and procedures and correct that?
Now I feel that society is more accepting.
It's got a long way to go, and now that it's part of the Title IX, that really legally raises the ante a little bit. So it's great news in terms of going forward, but I still think a lot of these perceptions have to change.
LGBT kids are a vulnerable populace that deserves to be protected universally. To get there, we need nationwide Title IX compliance, and either legislation or a Supreme Court case codifying our rights. All of this will not be easy and will not happen quickly, but it's a battle that deserves to be fought. There are almost 2 million LGBT students in American school systems, and every single one of them should be able to live without fear, no matter who they are or who they love.